There's a kind of love nobody claps for. No holiday, no thank you, no moment where someone looks you dead in the eye and says, "I see what you did for me." It's the kind of love you choose every single day, in silence. I did that for 14 years. And the kid I gave everything to looked me straight in the face and told me I wasn't welcome at his graduation. Yeah. My name's Jacob Scott. I'm a truck driver out of Fayetteville, Arkansas. I haul freight across 4 states, sleep at busted rest stops off I-40, and most of my clothes, clearance racket Dillards. They ain't nothing fancy about me. But for 14 years, I showed up for a kid who never once asked me to. And the night he told me to stay away, I left something on that kitchen table that flipped everything. Stick with me. This story's gonna hit different. And hey, drop where you're watching from in the comments. Smash that like button and hit subscribe. Trust me, you're gonna wanna be here. I met Betty back in 2008 at a church potluck. She brought a peach cobbler. I showed up empty-handed because my boy Michael said it was a cookout, and Michael lies about everything. That's why he's been divorced 3 times. Betty laughed when I told her, and I swear, that laugh felt like I'd been standing in the cold my whole life, and somebody finally cracked open a window. Second date, we're sitting at this little diner on College Avenue. She sets her coffee down real careful, like she's about to drop something heavy. "I got a son," she says. "He's 8. Name's Ryan. His dad, Larry, he's still around." I nodded. "Okay." She looks at me serious. "You need to understand what that means before this goes any further." I leaned back and said, "Means you got a son?" "I heard you." She stared at me for a long second. "Most guys hear that and bounce." I shrugged. Well, I'm still sitting here. And I stayed for 14 years.
Ryan was 8 when I met him. Quiet kid, the kind that makes you think too much is going on upstairs. Had his mama's eyes and his real dad's stubborn streak. He shook my hand like a grown man, looked me dead in the eye, then walked off without saying a word. I remember thinking, yeah, this kid's already figured it out. Most men don't stay. Right then, I made up my mind. I was going to be the exception. I married Betty in 2010. Ryan was 10. Stood at the end of the aisle in a clean little suit, didn't smile once for a single photo. Honestly, I respected that.
Kid wasn't fake. Most grown folks fake their whole lives. This boy was 10 and already real. First year, straight up Cold War. No drama, no yelling, just distance. I didn't try to force it, didn't show up with gifts trying to play super dad, didn't act like we were best friends. I just showed up. Every day. When Betty worked late at the clinic, I drove him to football practice. Every Tuesday, every Thursday. 5:15 sharp, I'd be outside that school, engine running, radio low. He'd hop in, drop his bag, stare out the window. 45 minutes, no talking, twice a week, for 3 years. But I'm a truck driver. Silence? That's my lane. One day, he's about 12. He gets in the truck and goes, "Coach says you don't even watch practice." I said, "I watched the first 10 minutes last week, till you told me to stop hovering." He pauses, then shrugs. "You can watch if you want, I don't care." Now that might not sound like much, but to me, that was everything. Kid just gave me permission to exist in his world.
Next practice? Man, I was out there on that sideline in 40-degree weather, denim jacket, hands half frozen, watching him throw that football like it meant something. And what I felt in that moment, I still don't got the perfect word for it. Maybe pride, maybe love, maybe both. Or the closest thing you're allowed to feel for somebody else's kid. Now here's the part I didn't see coming. While I was out here building something with Ryan, brick by brick, Tuesday drive by Tuesday drive, Betty, she was quietly pulling pieces out of the foundation behind me. Not out of hate. And you gotta hold on to that, because this story hits different if you don't turn her into the villain. Betty wasn't cold. She was scared. And scared people, they don't always wreck things fast. They do it slow. Real slow. in ways they don't even realize. You got to understand who Betty was before she ever became my wife. Before she was Betty Scott, she was Betty Calloway, a woman who'd already been left. Ryan's dad, Larry Arthur, man packed his stuff on a Monday, and by Thursday he had a whole new life set up in Dallas. Gone, just like that. Before Larry, there was another dude, Dennis. He lasted 11 months, then dipped the second things got real. Said he needed freedom, which is just a fancy way of saying he wasn't ready to grow up.
So, yeah, Betty had already lived through two men who felt permanent and turned out temporary. That kind of hurt, it don't just disappear. It hardens, turns into rules. And the rule she built was simple. Don't let Ryan get attached to somebody who might leave. So when I showed up, steady, quiet, reliable like a diesel engine, she watched me close, hope in one hand and a countdown clock in the other. She wanted me to stay, but she didn't trust that I would. And she sure as hell wasn't going to let her son fall for a man who might walk out one day. So she started protecting him. Not loud, not obvious. Nah, this was surgical. The kind of careful, quiet moves only somebody who's been hurt knows how to make. When Ryan was 10, just barely starting to warm up to me, she dropped little comments. Nothing crazy, just small stuff, like seeds. Jacob works real hard, baby. He's on the road a lot. You know how that goes. So, yeah, Betty had already lived through two men who felt permanent and turned out temporary. That kind of hurt, it don't just disappear. It hardens, turns into rules. And the rule she built was simple. Don't let Ryan get attached to somebody who might leave. So when I showed up, steady, quiet, reliable like a diesel engine, she watched me close, hope in one hand and a countdown clock in the other. She wanted me to stay, but she didn't trust that I would. And she sure as hell wasn't going to let her son fall for a man who might walk out one day. So she started protecting him. Not loud, not obvious. Nah, this was surgical. The kind of careful, quiet moves only somebody who's been hurt knows how to make. When Ryan was 10, just barely starting to warm up to me, she dropped little comments. Nothing crazy, just small stuff, like seeds. Jacob works real hard, baby. He's on the road a lot. You know how that goes.
When Ryan turned 12 and I hadn't missed a single practice, she'd say, "Jacob's a good man. I just don't want you getting too used to things. People change." And by 15, man, I remember this clear as day. Ryan almost called me dad one night, slipped out halfway. Then he caught himself, face turned red, and he shut it down. Hard. That night, Betty pulled him aside. I don't know what she said, but I'll tell you this. He never came close to saying it again. Not once. And look, I don't believe she was trying to hurt me. Not for a second. She was trying to protect her son from a very specific kind of pain. The kind that comes from loving a man who leaves. But here's the part that still messes with me, even now. I was the one man in that boy's life who was never gonna leave. Not built that way. Not wired that way. I was permanent. Through and through. And somehow, he got taught to treat me like I was temporary. Ryan grew up thinking the distance between us, that was him being smart, being careful, protecting himself. He thought he was doing the right thing. He had no clue. He was living inside his mama's fear. And me? I just kept showing up, kept driving, kept signing school papers, kept being there, even when it didn't look like it mattered. Now, let me tell you about Tommy Hayes. Tommy and me, we go way back. High school in Fayetteville. Played ball together, got into dumb trouble like kids do. Worked summers at this lumber yard off Dixon Street. After graduation, I hit the road, trucking. Tommy? Man, he was always the smart one. Got himself a scholarship to the University of Arkansas, then law school at Vanderbilt. Came back home and built a whole law firm from the ground up. Hayes, Greer and Associates. Family law, estate planning, all that. But here's the thing about me and Tommy. We never lost touch. That kind of friendship, it's rare. The kind where you can call at 11:30 at night and they pick up like it's nothing. No attitude, no questions, just there. Now, Ryan, he was at the University of Arkansas too, pre-law. And let me tell you something, that kid was sharp, for real. I'd hear him at the kitchen table, running practice arguments, thinking nobody was paying attention. But I was, always was. The way he broke things down, man, it reminded me of working on an engine, step by step, no shortcuts, focused, precise, relentless. When he turned 19, I reached out to Tommy, not begging, not asking for favors, just talking, man to man. I told him about Ryan, his grades, his discipline, the way his mind worked, what I'd seen in him all those years, even if the kid never saw me the same way. Because whether he called me dad or not didn't change the truth. I'd been in his corner the whole damn time. Tommy took a bite of his brisket sandwich, sat there quiet for a second. Then he looked at me and said, "Why are you doing all this?" I shrugged. "'Cause somebody should." He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. "All right," he said. "When he graduates, send me his transcripts. We'll talk." Over the next 3 years, I didn't push, didn't beg. I'd just check in with Tommy every now and then. Casual, low-key. Ryan made Dean's List. Ryan won a moot court comp. Just facts. Like talking about the weather. No pressure. Tommy kept listening, kept nodding. And by the time Ryan had senior year, Tommy had already made a move. Quietly. He held a junior associate spot open at his firm. Full salary, benefits, even built-in time to study for the bar exam. Turned down 2 other candidates for it. I asked him why. He said, "Man, you've been out here grinding 14 years and never asked me for nothing. Least I can do is look out for your kid." I almost said, he ain't my kid, but I didn't. And that wasn't all. I put money down on a car too. Now listen, I ain't rich, not even close. I drive trucks. That down payment? That came from 3 straight years of overtime runs, missed holidays, sitting in some truck stop in Memphis eating a stale vending machine sandwich, saying no to stuff I actually wanted, like that fishing trip out at Table Rock Lake. Michael kept inviting me, and yeah, I wanted to go, bad. But every time, I'd remember those brochures. Dodge Charger, dark blue, Ryan's favorite. He'd been cutting pictures of that car out of magazines since he was 16, pinning them up on his wall, then taking them down when he thought I noticed. Like wanting something made him weak, like dreaming was dangerous. I bought that car a year and a half before graduation, kept it parked over at Tommy's place, out of sight. Everything I had for him, the job offer, the car keys, all of it, I sealed it in a plain white envelope, kept it tucked inside my coat pocket, told nobody, not even Betty. June in Fayetteville, man, it starts off beautiful, before that Arkansas humidity kicks in and wraps around you like a wet blanket. Graduation day came. University of Arkansas, Bud Walton Arena, clear skies. Ryan, 22 years old, walking that stage like a man who finally figured himself out.
And Larry? Yeah, he showed up. Flew in from Dallas. First time in Fayetteville in 2 years. Funny how his schedule never worked for regular days, but somehow always lined up for big moments in photo ops. Ryan was lit up all day, smiling, laughing, checking his phone every 5 minutes. Did Dad land yet? That kind of energy you only get when your favorite person's coming. And me? Yeah, I wasn't that person. Hadn't been for a long time. And I'd made my peace with that. I was in the kitchen before we left, wiping counters, straightening chairs, just staying useful, like always. My coat was hanging by the door, envelope still inside. I was planning to give it to him later, at dinner. Then I heard footsteps behind me, Ryan coming down the stairs. I turned around smiling. Hey man, you look sharp. Jacob. The way he said my name, flat. Like it didn't mean nothing anymore.
Yeah, bud, I need to tell you something. Something in his voice made me stop. He looked at me, calm. Too calm. Like he practiced it. The best thing you can do for me today is not come to my graduation. Everything went quiet. Like the air just dropped out of the room. You're not my real dad, he said. You're just Jacob. Then he fixed his blazer, turned around, and walked back upstairs. Just like that. I stood there. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stood there. Just Jacob. Then I felt it. That shift. You ever feel a moment where everything finally clicks? Yeah. That. I looked up. Betty was standing in the hallway. She heard everything. I could see it all over her face. That frozen look. Somewhere between guilt and silence and fear. We locked eyes. 1 second. 2. She didn't say a word. Didn't come to me. Didn't fix it. She just turned and followed him upstairs. And right there, that's when it all made sense. Not what Ryan said. I'd been bracing for that for years. Kids say things. They don't always understand the weight of them. Nah. What broke something in me was her silence. Because in that moment, she didn't choose me. And deep down, I think she never did. Kids raised around fear? Yeah. They say things that cut deep. But that wasn't the part that broke me. Not really. The real wound was Betty, standing there and saying nothing. 14 years. 14 years of being that man in the house, fixing what broke, holding it down when things got rough, loving a kid who'd been quietly taught not to love me back. And she just stood there, silent. That's when it hit me. Hard. Ryan's distance? It wasn't just him. Nah. That thing was planted, watered, grown over time by hands that were scared but steady. And Betty, she had front row seats to all of it. Every step. Every moment. And still, she said nothing. So I walked over to my coat, reached into the pocket, pulled out that envelope, set it down on the kitchen table. Then I placed the car key on top. Just one key. No fob, no extras. Exactly how Ryan always said he wanted it. I remembered that. I remembered everything about that boy, even the stuff he thought nobody noticed. Then I laid Betty's letter beside it, open, face up. Put my tote on. Didn't slam the door. Didn't make a scene, just closed it behind me, quiet, like a man who finally made peace with something heavy. And I walked out to my truck. I didn't leave town. I just drove, about 20 minutes out.
To this gravel pull-off spot I knew, a place I used to go when life got too loud. Cut the engine. Sat there in the dark. Windows down. River moving somewhere below. Soft. Steady. Like it didn't care about anything else. I wasn't running. I just needed silence. While I was out there, Ryan and Betty went to that graduation. Then dinner, with Larry and the rest of the family. They came home around midnight, laughing. Probably something Larry said. Then they walked into the kitchen, and everything changed. The light was still on. I left it that way. The table, the key, the letters, and the silence of a house missing somebody who used to fill it. Ryan grabbed his envelope first, opened it. Inside, a formal offer letter. Hayes, Greer and Associates. His full name printed at the top. Junior associate position. Full salary, benefits, bar exam leave built in, and a handwritten note from Tommy saying that job had been waiting for 18 months, just for him. At the bottom, one line, from me. The charger's in the driveway. The key is yours either way. So is the job. I've already put in the word for you. Tommy'll treat you fair. Drive safe. Jacob. That was it. No guilt. No after everything I did. No reminders. No pressure. Just a gift. Clean. No strings attached. Ryan set the letter down slow, walked to the front door, opened up. And there it was. Dark blue Charger. Exactly how he always pictured it. Ribbon tied to the mirror. Tommy's wife insisted on that. I didn't have the energy to argue. Ryan just stood there. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stared. For a long time. Now Betty, her letter hit different. She stood right there at the kitchen table, reading it. Once, twice, 3 times, 4. Couldn't even move after. She told me that later. Months later. After things between them started breaking enough for truth to finally show up. The letter said, Betty, I knew for a long time you were scared I'd leave, and I understood why. You'd been left before. You weren't about to let Ryan go through that again. I'm not saying this to blame you. I'm saying it because you deserve to know. I saw it. All of it. And I stayed anyway, because I was never gonna leave.
Not once. Not ever. That's the one thing you got wrong. Maybe the only thing. But it's the one thing that cost Ryan the most. He's 22, and still figuring out who he is. Because he was taught not to hold on too tight. He deserves that chance now. The job is real. The car is real. The key's on the table. Tell him this. The greatest thing I ever gave him was showing up for 14 years without ever making him feel like he owed me for it. Mortgage is paid through December. That should give you time. Jacob Scott. Ryan sat in that Charger for a long time. And for the first time in his life, he had everything he ever wanted, and no idea what to do with it. He sat there in that Charger, key in his hand, offer letter in his lap, and he started doing the math. 8 years old when I showed up, 14 years after that. All the rides in the rain, the nights he was sick, the things I never said out loud and never asked credit for. And then something clicked. He remembered a moment. He was 12. We were watching a football game together. One of those rare Saturdays where he let me exist in the same room without making it awkward.
At halftime, I said something like, "I'm not going anywhere." Back then, he thought I meant I wasn't leaving the couch. Sitting in that car at midnight, Ryan realized I wasn't talking about the game. He went back inside, found Betty still sitting at that kitchen table. He didn't yell. That's not who he is. He just sat across from her and asked, real calm, "Why'd you always say that stuff?" "What stuff?" "About not getting too comfortable? About things changing?" Betty tried to hold it together. She's good at that. Life trained her well. But Ryan? He's built different. Future lawyer. Knows how to sit in silence and wait. She broke first. Didn't tell him everything. Not all at once. That kind of truth? It comes out slow, piece by piece. But she told him enough. About Larry leaving. About Dennis before that. About the fear.
About how she built a wall around his heart with her own hands because she couldn't survive watching her son love someone who might leave. And how for years she was sure I eventually would. Ryan went quiet. Real quiet. Then he asked her one question. She couldn't answer. Did he know? Did Jacob know what you were doing? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Because the truth was, yeah, I knew. Maybe not at first, but over time, I figured it out. Same way you figure out what's wrong with an engine. You listen long enough, and once I knew, I didn't fight it. Didn't call it out. Didn't make a scene. What was I going to do? Blow up his sense of safety? Expose his mom? Make a kid pay for decisions he didn't make? Nah. I did what I always did. I showed up. I called Tommy.
Set things in motion. Put money down on that car. Handled it quiet. Betty couldn't explain that part. Didn't have the words. So Ryan stood up, grabbed the key, and walked back outside. Sat in that Charger until the sky started turning. 8 weeks later, Ryan started at Hayes, Greer and Associates. First day, Tommy walked into his office himself. Didn't send an assistant. Didn't make it formal. Just placed a small framed photo on his desk. Said, "Jacob dropped this off a while back. Told me to give it to you when the time was right." Then he walked out. Tommy always knows when to leave a room. Ryan picked up the photo. Benton County Fair. He was 11. Caught mid-laugh on a ride. That real kind of joy. The kind kids forget how to feel. And off to the side, barely in frame, was me, watching him. And you could see it clear as day. That look, pride. Ryan sat there for a long minute, just staring.
That's just who he is. Ryan ain't built for easy affection. Probably never will be. And I respect that. Always have. But this was real. His arms around me, hands on my back, like he was making sure I was actually there. We sat down, ordered some food, and talked for 3 straight hours. I'm not going to give you every word. Some conversations, they belong to the table they were set at. But somewhere around that second cup of coffee, Ryan looked up at me and asked, "Why didn't you ever say anything about what you knew? About what she was doing?" I leaned back a little, thought about it. "I could have," I said. "But that wasn't the point." He frowned.
You didn't need me to be right. I told him. You needed me to be there. He stared at his cup for a second, nodded slow.
That's just who he is. Ryan ain't built for easy affection. Probably never will be. And I respect that. Always have. But this was real. His arms around me, hands on my back, like he was making sure I was actually there. We sat down, ordered some food, and talked for 3 straight hours. I'm not going to give you every word. Some conversations, they belong to the table they were set at. But somewhere around that second cup of coffee, Ryan looked up at me and asked, "Why didn't you ever say anything about what you knew? About what she was doing?" I leaned back a little, thought about it. I could have, I said. But that wasn't the point. He frowned. You didn't need me to be right. I told him. You needed me to be there. He stared at his cup for a second, nodded slow. Then he said it, real quiet, like it cost him something. You were there. I nodded. Yeah, I was. That picture from the Benton County Fair, still sitting on his desk at Hayes Greer and Associates. Tommy told me. Ryan's never moved it. Files come and go. Paperwork stacks up. Life keeps moving. But that photo stays right where it was placed. Day 1. I got a copy too. Keep it tucked above the visor in my truck. Passenger side. So when I'm driving east on I-40, early morning, Arkansas sky just starting to turn purple, I pull that visor down, and there he is. Ryan, 11 years old, mid-laugh. And me? Just off to the side, watching him. Back then, I didn't have a name for that feeling. Now I do. Betty and I, we've talked. More than I expected, more than either of us was ready for. She cried. I almost did. But here's the truth. She made her choices out of fear. And fear, if you let it sit too long, it turns into the very thing you were trying to avoid. She was so scared of losing another man that she built distance she couldn't fix, and held on to it until the one man who was never going to leave finally did. I don't carry bitterness. Can't afford it. Bitterness is heavy, and I drive trucks for a living. No room for extra weight. Now me and Ryan, we grab lunch once a month. Sometimes Penguin Ed's, sometimes some new spot he swears I gotta try. He usually picks up the check. Says he's working through the backlog. I let him. Partly because it makes him feel right, and partly because the food's actually real good. One time I told him, "Man, you're bad at math." He smirked. Said, "Yeah? You should have helped me pass that 3rd grade multiplication test then." I laughed. "Took you to every tutoring session." He looked down at his coffee, grinned a little. "Yeah," he said. "You did." He's gonna be a hell of a lawyer. The kind that actually listens. And let me tell you, that's rare. Real rare. Don't know where he got that from. Actually, I might. That's my son. DNA didn't match.
Everything else did. And sometimes I'm pulling out of a truck stop at 4 a.m., got 800 miles ahead of me, sky just starting to light up at the edges. And I think about that quiet 8-year-old kid who shook my hand like a grown man and walked back to his room. And I think, I'm glad I stayed. I never needed him to call me dad. Not once.
Didn't need the title. Didn't need the credit. Didn't need anything back. All I ever needed was to know that when it was all said and done, he'd remember. That I was there. That somebody showed up. That it mattered to somebody. And yeah, it didn't happen that way at first. But in the end, he got there. If this story hit you, go ahead, hit that like button. Subscribe for more real, raw stories like this.